Let's get right into it. Number 7. Blackbeard. If you ever thought your uncle with the bad goatee was scary, imagine him with lit fuses sticking out of his face. That was Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, the human embodiment of a heavy metal album cover. He didn't just rob ships, he performed. The man was less of a pirate and more of a smoke machine operator who occasionally stole gold. Picture this. He would braid slow-burning matches into his beard, light them up, and storm into battle with smoke pouring off his face. To sailors of the 1700s, it looked like the devil himself had risen from the ocean just to ruin their week. He understood what psychologists today would call terror marketing. Basically, why stab people when you can scare them into handing over their wallets instead? Blackbeard commanded the Queen Anne's Revenge, a ship so large and armed it made colonial governors cry into their wigs. In 1718, he blockaded the entire port of Charleston, South Carolina, just to demand medicine, not treasure, not spices, medicine. So yeah, turns out pirates were running healthcare shakedowns before insurance companies got the idea. And the wildest part? For all his fame as a ruthless monster, there's no real evidence Blackbeard killed anyone outside of battle. His entire reputation was one giant psychological warfare campaign. His enemies surrendered because they were too busy soiling themselves. Basically, he was playing scary costume contest, and somehow everyone else lost. Number 6. Bartholomew Roberts. If piracy was high school, Blackbeard was the flashy drama kid, but Bartholomew Roberts was the overachiever who just kept winning. This guy, also called Black Bart, captured over 400 ships in his career. 400, to put that in perspective. If every ship were a car, he basically ran the world's most illegal used car lot. Roberts was weirdly stylish for a pirate. He wore fine clothes, fancy hats, and carried himself like he was going to a royal ball rather than a sea battle. Imagine being robbed at sword point by someone dressed like they're about to critique your wine collection. He understood the value of image, but unlike Blackbeard, his brand wasn't terror, it was efficiency. He had rules, actual rules. Roberts drafted what was basically a pirate employee handbook. No gambling, no lights after 8, and everyone got an equal share of loot. Yes, the guy running a floating crime syndicate was somehow stricter than your middle school teacher, and the crew loved it. He kept things fair, organized, and just ruthless enough to make sure nobody got ideas about quitting. The psychology here? People will follow a leader who gives them structure, even if that leader is plundering shipping lanes. Roberts turned chaos into a system, and his crew became loyal, disciplined, and terrifyingly effective. His downfall came in 1722, when the Royal Navy finally cornered him off the coast of Africa. But by then, he had already become the gold standard of piracy. If Blackbeard was the rock star, Roberts was the CEO, and somehow, being robbed by either one was still the worst Tuesday of your life. Number 5. Charles Vane. If pirates had Yelp reviews, Charles Vane's would just say, 1 star. Way too much stabbing. Vane was less strategic pirate mastermind and more walking anger problem with a ship. Where Blackbeard leaned on intimidation and Roberts leaned on organization, Vane's entire personality was violence. The guy flat out refused to surrender, even when it made 0 sense. In 1718, the British sent a pardon to pirates in the Bahamas, basically saying, hey, quit crime and we won't hang you. Most pirates thought, life sounds nice. Vane said, nah, I'd rather keep murdering and stealing. Bold choice. Spoiler, it didn't end well. His crew actually hated him because he was too ruthless, even for pirates. He tortured prisoners, burned ships for fun, and constantly picked fights he couldn't win. Imagine working at a company where the boss is both incompetent and terrifying, and also he might set your desk on fire for laughs. That was Vane. The psychological trick here? Fear is a leadership tactic, but only if people actually respect you. Vane never figured out the respect part. His crew eventually mutinied and kicked him off his own ship. He tried the whole I'll start a new pirate career thing, but karma hit him like a cannonball. He was captured, shipped back to London, and executed. So yeah, if Blackbeard was terrifying, Vane was the kind of guy who makes you terrified and annoyed. Number 4, Bonny and Mary Red. Yes, 2 pirates in 1 slot, because these women basically operated as a chaotic duo. If you think pirate ships were an old boys club, Bonny and Mary Read said, hold my rum. They disguised themselves as men at first, but once the whole surprise, we're women thing was revealed, they doubled down on being absolute nightmares at sea. Bonny was fiery, reckless, and famously told her lover, the pirate Calico Jack, that he should fight like a man instead of begging for mercy. Mary Read had a backstory straight out of a soap opera, raised pretending to be a boy, served as a soldier, then hopped over to piracy like it was just another job posting. Together, they fought like they had something to prove, which, in a world run by dudes, they absolutely did. Their psychology trick? Nobody expected women to be brutal fighters. That surprise factor made them 10 times scarier. Witnesses described them charging into battles swearing, slashing, and shooting with more ferocity than half the crew combined. Unfortunately, their pirate careers ended when Calico Jack's ship was ambushed. The men cowered below deck, but Anne and Mary fought until they were literally overwhelmed. Captured, They avoided immediate execution by claiming pregnancy, basically pulling the 18th century version of a get-out-of-jail-free card. In legend, they became symbols of rebellion and fearlessness. In reality, they proved that piracy didn't care about gender, it cared about whether you were willing to stab a guy in the face. Number 3. Henry Every. Picture a pirate so infamous that governments on opposite sides of the planet teamed up just to hunt him down. That was Henry Every, sometimes called Long Ben. He's basically the guy who broke piracy's difficulty settings. In 1695, Every and his crew pulled off what might be the single most lucrative heist in pirate history, the capture of the Mughal treasure ship Ganges Sawai. And when I say treasure, I don't mean a couple of chests of coins, I mean gold, silver, jewels, silk. If you opened the cargo hold, it probably looked like Scrooge McDuck's swimming pool. But here's where things got truly chaotic. The ship belonged to the Mughal Empire, which at the time was basically one of the most powerful superstates in the world. And the Mughal emperor? He was not amused. He pressured the British government to crack down on pirates harder than ever. So Every's one robbery basically triggered an international oh crap moment that changed how piracy was handled for decades. Psychology angle? Every understood greed, both his own and his crew's. By scoring a massive payday, he didn't just buy wealth, he bought infamy. People whispered his name like a ghost story. And it worked. Pirates who never met him claimed inspiration. Governments panicked, and his legend became way larger than his actual career. After the heist, Every disappeared. Some say he retired rich. Some say he died broke, trying to sell stolen jewels at a sketchy pawnshop. Either way, the man became the first real world-famous pirate, proving one ship could rewrite global history. Number 2. Ching Shih. You think Western pirates were scary? Let me introduce you to the woman who made Blackbeard look like a mall cop. Ching Shih, a former prostitute turned pirate queen, commanded, wait for it, an entire armada of around 70,000 pirates. Yeah, 70,000. That's not a crew. That's a small country. She ran the Red Flag Fleet in the early 1800s in the South China Sea, and her rule was so strict it makes Roberts's handbook look like a bedtime story. Rules included no deserting, no stealing from villagers who supported them, and absolutely no assaulting female captives, instant death penalty. So not only was she feared, she was organized to the point where the Chinese Navy, Portuguese Navy, and even the freaking British East India Company all tried to stop her, and failed. Imagine how terrifying it must have been to be a merchant ship captain and see hundreds of red sails blotting out the horizon. That wasn't just robbery. That was apocalypse cosplay. Her psychology hack? Discipline plus overwhelming numbers. She didn't need to light her beard on fire or scream threats. Her enemies already knew they were screwed. Eventually, the Chinese government got so tired of losing that they offered her amnesty. And here's the plot twist. She took it. Retired, rich, respected, and untouched. Ching Shih is one of the few pirates in history who didn't die by hanging, battle, or betrayal. She just quit piracy like it was a summer job and lived to old age. Basically, she speedran piracy on God mode and then retired like a boss. Number 1. François L'Olonnais. If there was ever a pirate who made even other pirates go, okay dude, chill, it was François L'Olonnais. Imagine taking the worst traits of Charles Vane, sprinkling in some horror movie energy, and giving him a machete. Congratulations, you've got the guy who basically turned sadism into a brand. Born in France, he ended up in the Caribbean in the 1660s, where he quickly made a name for himself as the pirate equivalent of a chainsaw-wielding villain, unlike Blackbeard, who scared people with theatrics, or Roberts, who scared people with efficiency. L'Olonnais scared people because he actually enjoyed violence. His enemies weren't just defeated, they were brutalized. There's one cheerful little story where, after capturing Spanish soldiers, he literally carved out a prisoner's heart and took a bite of it in front of the others, just to make a point. Yeah, the psychology here isn't complicated. He figured if you terrify people badly enough, they'll surrender faster. And, disturbingly, it worked. Towns gave up, crews bailed, and the Spanish crown put a massive bounty on his head. But karma has a sense of humor. After years of spreading pure nightmare fuel across the Caribbean, L'Olonnais was eventually captured by a group of indigenous people in Central America. And let's just say, they gave him a taste of his own medicine. Reports say he was torn to pieces and eaten. Brutal? Yes. Ironic? Oh, absolutely. So while some pirates became legends for their strategy, flair, or empire building, L'Olonnais became legendary for being the closest thing history had to a slasher villain. He's proof that even in the golden age of piracy, there were still lines you could cross that made everyone root for your downfall. And that's our lineup. From fire-bearded showmen to 70,000-strong pirate queens to the guy who thought cannibalism was a leadership tactic. History wasn't just full of feared pirates, it was full of people who turned fear into a weapon, whether through smoke, discipline, or sheer insanity. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.